Everybody, please ensure that their cell phones are silenced for today's event. Appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Mic check, 1, 2, 3, mic check, mic check.
Good morning. Good to see you. All right. All right. Well, good morning. We're great to be back in Gadsden County. I want to thank the folks here for hosting us. And I also want to thank the folks we have with us today. I have the Secretary of Florida Department of Economic Opportunity, Dane Eagle, is with us here today. I have Sheriff Morris Young. Thank you, Sheriff, for being here. We have Eugene Lamb, who's a friend of ours and has served in a variety of capacities for the state of Florida. We have our great Gadsden County commissioners. And then I got a Gadsden County native, a friend of mine, Freddie Figures, who's going to talk about kind of his great story and all the great stuff he's been working on, and it started right here in Gadsden County. And so we have been very supportive of our rural communities since I've become governor. Part of it is I think, we do some investments. It goes a lot further in some of the rural areas than in some of the more urban areas. That's just the reality of it. And so if you're talking about infrastructure, if you're talking about job training, if you're talking about some of these key things, if the state can go in there and help, particularly these fiscally constrained communities, that can make a huge, huge impact. So we've been excited to be able to do that. Since I've been governor, we've actually done public events in every one of the 67 counties. And I don't think any other governor has done that in 3 years' time. And so we're here today. Before we get started with today's announcement, I do just want to say, the gas prices are going up dramatically. And I just have to disagree, with the president saying that this is somehow an incredible opportunity to have this transition. Fact of the matter is, this is really punishing a lot of people at the pump. It's very difficult to afford. What are you going to do? Just not go to work all of a sudden? People are basically stuck with having to pay these prices. And unfortunately, I think when we have Memorial Day and into the summer, I think it's going to go up even more. And so you're going to be looking at, for unleaded, Florida, we're actually probably average or even slightly below average of the nation. I think the nation is going to be over $5 a gallon this summer, and many parts of Florida, unfortunately, are going to see it. Now, we have a gas tax holiday in next year's budget, and that'll help, but that's like 25 cents a gallon if it's going up this much. And so it's something that is really, really significant for a lot of people. And then the fuel, it's not just the people getting it at the pump. It goes into every business in terms of their energy costs, and it helps drive up the price of everything that people consume. The grocery bills have gone through the roof, and there's different things for that, but the energy is a big part of that. Fertilizer costs, all these things are doing it. And, we're proud in Florida, our unemployment rate's far below the national average. We have more job openings than we have people to even fill them now. And a lot of people wouldn't have predicted that just a couple years ago. But if you look, even if you make 5-10% more year over year, if fuel is up 50% and groceries are up 20% and utilities are up, then you've actually lost ground potentially. And so I think it's a huge issue. And, we have a big tax package that are going to affect July 1st to try to provide some relief. We're also going through the budget. I'm going to trim some of the budget, quite frankly, because I'm sensitive about doing anything to fuel the inflation. And so you got to be smart about how you're doing it. But I think these gas prices are a big problem. And so I hope that they will reevaluate that and not view that as an incredible thing. Because the fact of the matter is, right now at this time, you can't just run an economy on solar and wind. And we've done a lot on solar in Florida. We've done a lot on electric vehicles. We've put in charging stations on the Florida Turnpike, and we've got more coming in all across the state. And I'm fine doing that, but you can't do that at the exclusion of making sure people have access to affordable energy. So we stand in favor of doing everything the U.S. can do to regain our energy independence, which we actually had for the first time in a long time. So we're here today because, I think rural communities really matter in the state of Florida. I think we have tremendous potential in rural communities, obviously in North Florida, but even you go down to the heartland of Florida, and I think people have great potential. I just think about my own administration. Our Secretary of the Lottery grew up in Pahokee, right on Lake Okeechobee, poor agriculture community, gets a football scholarship to Florida State, becomes successful in business, and now is serving as a secretary for the state of Florida. A lot of people probably said, he wouldn't have been able to do those things, if they just looked at kind of how he was born and where the opportunities were at the time. And I think also having Freddie here, I think is really a testament that, everybody counts, everybody has God-given ability, and we just have to do everything we can so that people can get the most out of this. He was abandoned as a baby in Gadsden County, and if you would have said, what are the chances that he was going to be successful, I think most people would have taken the under on that. That's just the reality of the situation. But he had a gift. He obviously was taken in by Nathan and Betty May, adopted him when he was 2 days old, and he was raised here in Gadsden County. But he had a gift for technology and electronics, and he'll talk to you about kind of what he did. But he knew like the GPS, and he was helping with the dementia and put it on the shoes, and was just innovating all these things. And he was somebody who is himself a telecom operator. He was a business owner as a teenager, and he's done huge in terms of business success. And he's done so well, and I think the story's been so inspirational that they're actually going to make a movie about him. Hollywood's got the rights, and so that's going to come down the pipe. But he has a manufacturing facility in Doral down in South Florida, and his corporate office is down there. And he's actually, his phone he produced his own phone. He does all these things, and so he had the gift for this and was able to turn it in to a career that nobody would have thought was possible. And you know what he does with that? He puts a lot of people to work. He's able to lift a lot of people up business-wise, but he's also able to do it with philanthropy and being involved in a lot of great things. And so, to start out abandoned in rural Florida to end up now being somewhere where they're going to do a movie about, I think what it shows these kids is, don't let anyone tell you can't succeed. It's not always easy. There's curveballs, but I think that, seeing somebody like Freddie shows that you have an opportunity to do great things, even against very, very long odds. And so part of the reason I think we're here and we've been to all the rural communities in Florida is because, I think there's people like Freddie in all these different corners of the state of Florida. And, we can't necessarily from government, guarantee someone's going to reach his success, but we provide tools that we need. If we're helping the community, have better infrastructure or better educational opportunities, it only takes one person to get that spark and to do great things. So I look at these kids, and I know they have a lot of potential. So we want to be able to be here helping that. So what we're going to be able to do today is announce, I have the budget that we've been going through. It's a lot of stuff to go through. We're going to be signing that very soon. But what I'm able to announce today is we at the state of Florida are going to be awarding nearly $9 million in grant awards to Gadsden County communities for infrastructure and to improve community facilities. So we're doing millions of dollars for the city of Chattahoochee to rehabilitate a former school building into a senior center, millions to expand the city of Gretna's community center, $1.7 million to Gadsden County to rehabilitate and improve a multi-use county-owned facility, $600,000 for Midway to construct an education center with 5-station shooting stand, automated clay throwing equipment, and small bore rifle range. Wow, that's great. $500,000 for the city of Gretna to support road and utility improvements for the construction of a new facility that will create jobs and have an economic impact of almost $15 million. And almost $25,000 to Quincy to replace a bypass pump and prevent future wastewater backflow. We also have a huge amount of money for our rural infrastructure fund. And so that's something that is available to all the rural communities. And so I told the commissioners, I was like, you guys have other things, apply for support with that, because we've been able to make a huge difference with the rural infrastructure fund. And when I came in, what was the typical amount in rural infrastructure?
5 million.
5, we got 30 now. And that just shows you that we're committed to helping folks in rural communities. So from 5 million to be the norm, now 30 million. Now just think about that. If you have 5 million, we've got a lot of rural counties. You can give here or there. With 30 million, I mean, you can make a really big difference with that. And so we do that. We also have the governor's job growth grant fund. We've been able to do a lot of great things. For example, we were at Northwest Florida State College a few months ago, kind of as the supply chain stuff was really starting to get a little more notoriety. But we said, you know what? We want to expand commercial driver's license slots so we can produce more truck drivers. They're paying these truck drivers a $15,000 signing bonus just to start. Walmart is starting their truck drivers at $110,000. So to be able to have those options where if you go in and you're qualified and you show up on time and do that you're going to make potentially 6 figures, I think that's something that's really, really positive. And so we're able to do a lot of different stuff. We've also done things like Job Growth Grant Fund to expand industrial parks throughout the state of Florida. Sometimes you have a good thing that needs a road to link it to a highway or something. So we're very nimble on how we do it. And I let the folks here know that apply for stuff. Maybe Freddie will do something with us and we can kind of get, private, public, private. So there's a lot of great opportunities here. But at the end of the day, we think that we're really proud of our rural communities in Florida. We're going to continue to offer support. I am just, when you look at the budget, we're now looking at for May, revenue coming in at probably $600 million over the estimate. Last month, it was $800 million over the estimate. So our fiscal year ends June 30th. We have a $101.5 billion budget for the current fiscal year. And the surplus is going to be like $21 billion probably at this pace. So that's the largest surplus in the history of the state of Florida. Now we're going to sign the budget next year. For next year's budget, they did expand the top line. Part of it's inflation. Part of it is, they see this and they want to be able to do. And we'll make some decisions to make sure that that's fiscally responsible. But, I think it shows that, we have record reserves. I hope that there's not a recession, but there's a lot of problematic signals on the macro level, and particularly out of the federal level. And so if we end up in a situation where the revenue slows, the economy slows, I'm not going to miss a beat. We're going to fund the schools. We're going to fund infrastructure. We're going to fund all the key things. I'll take some money from the rainy day fund, just plug it in, and we go. So we are not going to be in a fiscal crisis in the state of Florida because we've kept the state open. We've had low taxes. We've spent reasonably and conservatively. And the result is we're now able to do more for a lot of the communities throughout the state of Florida. So we're proud of that. We're also proud of some of the numbers that we've seen where we're setting tourism records that no one thought was possible. When COVID hit, everyone said, Florida and Hawaii were kind of ground zero for the economic impact because they thought tourism would dry up. And that obviously is a big part of our economy statewide, particularly when you look at places. Northwest Florida, has done phenomenal. But you look at the theme parks, all these other things. And the reality is we've never done better at this point. You look at the restaurant industry, which many people wanted to keep closed. We lifted up a lot of people, saved tens of thousands of jobs. Our restaurants around the state are up 25% than pre-COVID. And you got places like Boston and these other cities, they've been really bad with how they've treated these restaurants, and they're not even close to where they were prior to COVID. So that has a huge impact on individuals' lives and livelihoods. And, I was talking to somebody the other day that lives in Sarasota. He's like, I used to be able to go to these restaurants, no problem. Now they're always booked. I got to figure out how to get in because there's so much demand. So bottom line is, we've got a lot of great things going. We're going to continue to work really hard. But that's really, all communities in Florida count. Some of the big areas that have really exploded, like in South Florida, great. But we're not going to overlook rural Florida. And so, and this is one of the reasons why you got people like Freddie that I know can be produced from our rural community. So I want him to come up, talk about his story so that people can understand the significance. And then we'll do the check presentation.
All right.
Come on.
Thank you.
So thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm Freddie Figures, born and raised here in Gaston County. I'm an American inventor, president and CEO of Figures Communication. And Figures Communication is an American telecommunications company that provides cell phone service, broadband, and international calling services. And we manufacture cell phones. In Doral, also, we manufacture healthcare devices. So also, not just only on the manufacturing side, but we always pay it forward. So 10% of our gross revenue goes back to support our foundation on the philanthropic arm, where we support initiatives of scholarships, first responders, school systems. But I really want to say today, thank you for the governor for coming out and really making that investment and believing into Gaston County. Without this investment, I mean, I personally know the education of what this investment is going to do for these students here. And the governor has made such a significant investment into education throughout the state of Florida. So, Governor, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Dane Eagle, come on up.
Well, the governor on Friday was able to announce that Florida's unemployment rate is 3.0% compared to the nation's at 3.6%. So Florida continues to lead in economic growth. We're constantly ahead of the nation in job growth, workforce. We have more people working in Florida today than February 2020 pre-pandemic. And it's thanks to the governor's Freedom First policies and making sure that Florida's leading. But even more importantly than that, the governor has seen the growth across the state. He's looked to his administration, challenged all the secretaries, everybody that works with him to make sure we're not leaving the rural communities behind, which is why it's so awesome to be able to announce $9 million today, nearly $9 million for Gadsden County. A lot of this is infrastructure, community centers, approving the governor's commitment to Hurricane Michael communities. One of the grants today is for William Stevens High School, which burnt down, named after the first African-American doctor in Quincy. But we're going to be able to rebuild the cafeteria to make sure that that piece of history stands, but also serves as a shelter for future storms. So that's amazing. And we're going to continue to work with your community leaders to make sure that we can do more. As the governor mentioned, we have the Rural Infrastructure Fund, we have broadband. The governor said in his statements that he's been to all the rural communities. That's not a hyperbole. The governor's literally been to all 67 counties. It's easy to get to Miami or Orange or Duval. Maybe not so easy to get to Dixie or Swanee or Gilchrist, but the governor made it a point to be at every single one. I got to attend a few of them, but we were there not only delivering checks, but asking what more we can do. So we're going to do more. We'll work with your leaders. We'll work on broadband, we'll work on Rural Infrastructure Fund, we'll work on job growth, but it's all thanks to the governor's commitment. Thank you.
And I think what's the broadband, 400 million?
400 million.
So we got 400 million for rural broadband. And basically, we want everyone in Florida to be able to have access, to high quality broadband. It's interesting though, it's not just the rural counties because, we have some big counties that have rural areas within them. Mm-hmm. So for example, like, parts of Hillsborough, Palm Beach, some of them will benefit as well because they don't have the same infrastructure as some of the places that are more populated. So we're really excited about being able to make a difference there. And we also had, and I think the legislature was smart of providing money to plus up sheriff's deputies in rural counties. And so sheriff, you're going to have the ability to raise salaries for the deputies. And that goes on. We're going to do second year in a row, we'll be doing $1,000 bonuses for all sworn law enforcement and firefighters throughout Florida. So we're really proud of that. We're also proud of the recruitment and retention bill that we signed that for new deputies coming into sheriff or to police departments, anywhere in the state they can get a $5,000 signing bonus for coming to Florida or for young people that are going in to law enforcement. It's interesting. I was just down in Lee County talking to the sheriff there, and I was like, well, how's it going? Are people interested? And he's like, Governor, I've got a huge waiting list now of people that are trying to come to Florida. And so, I think with the rural sheriff's departments doing the salary increase, the bonus for everybody, and then offering the new recruits a $5,000 bonus. I think it's going to go a long way. And so we're really excited, but there is a specific line item in the budget for the rural deputy salaries. And so I've approved that. And I think that that's going to make a big difference. Why don't we do the check presentation? So any of you commissioners that want to come and accept this on behalf of the county, be my guest.
Let's get some of these little ones in here.
You got it?
Come on, Ryan. Go ahead.
You get in front of it. That's right. All right. Yeah, of course. Thanks so much. All right. Anybody have any questions?
Governor, obviously, special session going on. We've heard from Senate sponsor. All these reforms aren't going to really directly impact or lower rates for at least 18 to 24 months. How happy are you with the final product that they're pushing forward right now?
Well, I think if you look, though, if they do, which we support, something like my Safe Florida Home, they're going to put money into that where Floridians, particularly people, who are more middle income, working class, can get grants to make improvements on their home for hurricane preparations. That will end up leading to them qualifying for some discounts. Now, obviously, if you have an escalation, the discount, you still could have a net increase depending on where you're at. But I do think that will help, relieve some pressure. I think what you'll also see is more people want to do business in Florida and offer policies. The thing is like if you want like car insurance, you look to see what one company's doing, and then you look at what all the others are doing, then you make a decision. Well, in Florida, for homeowners insurance, a lot of times you don't have any options. And so they raise your rates, you don't have a thing. Maybe they'll dump you onto Citizens. And so I think kind of having a better, stable market is going to draw more people into wanting to do business in Florida. But, I'll talk to people, say like Florida has been the worst for this, and it's difficult to, the costs are high, and I think that they're working to address it. But I think it's also just important to let people know we have the worst inflation we've had in 4 decades, okay? So the idea that people are going to see radical reductions in bills based on what we're doing, that is not something, if anyone's promising you that, just the inflation alone, the amount that it costs to build homes now, if you look for what it was just 2 years ago, look at all the materials that go into it. Some of the materials have gone up 100% in 2 years. And so that obviously factors in when you're talking about insurance coverage, potentially replacing a roof or things like that. But I think that these reforms are positive. I think consumers are going to be able to access some of these programs that could allow them. I mean, obviously, you want to pay lower rates if you make an improvement. But even more importantly, you want to avoid damage in the first place, and this could help with some of the things. We also, in our tax package, provided a tax-free ability to do things like some of the fortified windows and some other things that people have done to make improvement. You can get some of that stuff tax-free now starting July 1st. So I think that'll be a very big benefit as well. But I think the telltale will be, are you going to have more business wanting to come into Florida and offer policies to people? And the indications that I've seen is that will be the case. And so that's really the most important first step. All right. Well, thanks so much. It was so good to be here. We appreciate it. And y'all just let us know what more we can do, okay? All right. Thank you.
A little bit more of an abbreviated session with the governor today. Just for clarity's sake, let me get the camera set right here. Havana, Florida is a little tiny town way, way, way up north of Tallahassee here, up in this region. I don't even know if it'll pop up. Yep, it will. It's way up here by the Georgia border. Now, this is one of those places that they didn't bring it up during the press conference, but the governor fixed our congressional map to make it more sane, rational, and fair. For many years, they had created this district that was just insane. I didn't bring up a map of it, but it was a district that was this tiny little sliver of land that started in Jacksonville and worked its way through all of the minority communities all through Tallahassee. And it was basically just, it was gerrymandered to give racial minorities the power to control the district, and that's illegal. So the governor fixed that. So a lot of the people up here in minority communities are not particularly happy with the governor for doing this, but it was the right thing to do. But I wanted to talk about something that we have been covering for the last, about a week now. There have been people for years, and I've said this before, talking about what would happen. All the power went out, if it was an EMP, if it was a grid down situation, collapse of the economy kind of thing. I always thought that it was never going to be an all or nothing situation. There would be certain areas that would suffer, but it wouldn't be everywhere all the time. But even the idea of the power grid not being reliable, meaning rolling brownouts, meaning sometimes it's on, sometimes it's off, we don't know. Go back and forth from, candles and generators to, oh, there's the power back on again. Okay, so let's turn on the fridge, turn on the air conditioner, and that's good for 3 days, and then it's gone again. You see, that's what I really thought was going to be the issue. That there wouldn't be this reliability. And that reliability is what keeps things functioning in a civilized society. It's the reliability factor, not always being gone or always being there. See, because if it was just gone and gone forever, people could adapt and adapt quickly. Okay, there's no power, so everything would change. Believe it or not, there being no power anywhere for anyone actually wouldn't give criminals a huge advantage. It would hurt, like they say, a rising tide lifts all boats. Well, a sinking tide grounds all boats, does it not? So, the criminal element, without having power themselves, would suffer just as much. It's the back and forth. It's the not knowing. Is there going to be power? Is there not going to be power? Now, what am I talking about? What have I rambled on about for the last 2 minutes? Here's a story. Renewable energy dependence could lead to rolling blackouts in Michigan this summer. In Michigan, could experience rolling blackouts as renewable energy sources struggle to keep up with demand. See, this is what the governor was referring to when Biden said, we have to go through this painful transition to get to this new place where we use wind and solar and all this crap. We have solar in Florida as a backup, and it's a wonderful backup. Some people use it primarily, but, you see, here's the key. There's a giant but to it. Okay, pardon the funny way of putting that, but those panels don't last forever. And neither do all of the parts that go to running the entire system. They have to be replaced. And the places that replace the solar panels, they don't run on solar energy. Let me say this again. All of the infrastructure you need to get solar panels A to house B and get it installed, all of the things that are involved in that don't run on solar, don't run on wind. It's all of the infrastructure, what the governor talks about, infrastructure. The infrastructure, the base level, the base part of what makes our society work is not anywhere near ready to be running on renewables. And that's just the reality. Now, what does this have to do with our world? You see, those of us who have to do a job for a living, those of us who have to go to work for a living, those of us who have to focus on doing something productive for a living, can't always be looking around for those who would take it all from us. That's why we have police. That's why we have security forces. That's their job. Well, it's going to be very, very difficult for them to do their job if they don't know whether the repeater towers are going to work for their radios, are going to be on or off at any one moment given in time. Believe it or not, cell towers, all that for your cell phone to work, you can charge up your cell phone all you want with your little solar charger, but the tower that's going to relay your signals is not running on solar power. So you can have working electronics and have everything all powered up and it be totally useless. You see, now that's what will give thieves the advantage. Because what do thieves and thugs and criminals do? Well, they don't have jobs, number one. They wait for opportunities. They wait for things to fall apart temporarily, and then they go do what they got to do, and they retreat back into the shadows. And that's what's going to be the problem. Also, how is that going to work out with prisons? How is that going to work out with prisons? Power on, power off, power on, power off. It's not. It's absolutely not going to work. And I would like to cover something else too, by the way, because people have been using a term incorrectly. Some people say, Florida Maquis, aren't you just, quote unquote, psyoping us? Okay, first of all, that's not a word. Psychological operations are any operation that makes people think or keeps them from thinking. Let me say that again. Psychological operations is just the idea of making people think something or keeping them from thinking something. You see, those who want to rework the power structures of this country, and by power, I don't mean political power, I mean actual electrical power. They don't understand psychology, sociology, or anthropology. They don't understand what the ramifications of their actions are going to be. All they see is the Star Trek world 1,000 years in the future that they want to get to, and they want to feel like they did something to move the ball down the road to the Star Trek future, where there's magical food replicators in the wall, and you can beam people from place to place, and there are no more gasoline engines, and, there's starships to go enforce your morality wherever you want to. Go. You can just travel faster than the speed of light. Everybody wears jumpsuits. Nobody's fat. That's what they want. They think it's just as simple as that. And this is a key to people when you see them operating emotionally versus rationally. And the reason I bring all this up is because it can be something as simple as this. You see, when you look at a pair of boots on a step of a house, a large size 12 pair of boots, well, what's the unconscious assumption? What's the unconscious assumption? A man lives there, of course. Big, huge pair of dirty men's size 12 work boots. You don't even have to consciously think it. It's an unconscious psychological operation. It's one of those things that I've counseled over at the Patreon channel ladies should do. It's a form of psychological operations. If you live alone, if you're a lady, you live alone, you have a fear for your safety. Go have a grandfather, a father, a brother, uncle, a cousin. Hey, do you have any old work boots? This is what I'm trying to affect here. This idea that there could be a man in here, and that's will stop a lot of burglars. That will stop a lot of guys that are going to maybe taking advantage of single women. Just that pair of work boots. And maybe get some big dirty fingerprints on the door too. You know how men do that? You'll have their hands will be all dirty and you have a nice white screen door. You know? Some guy comes walking up and he's thinking about maybe taking advantage of you, and he sees the work boots and he sees the big, giant, dirty guy fingerprints on the door. That'd be all it take to turn somebody around. That's PsyOps 101. PsyOps 101. Dogs are the masters of psychological operations. Absolutely the masters of them. Think about it. Even a big German Shepherd is about, 110, 120 pounds? He doesn't have any thumbs. He can't fire a gun at you. He's not armed. And he's half your size. And he's only 2.5 feet off the ground, 3 feet off the ground. So here's this animal that's half your size, that can't shoot you, that is only about 3 feet off the ground. But I'll tell you what, full-grown men, even full-grown armed men, will stop dead in their tracks if they see a German Shepherd bolting at them at full speed. You see, they play the game. They play the mind game. And it's a dog. That's why, ask anybody about it. Full-grown mountain lions will run up trees rather than confront dogs, barking dogs, especially German Shepherds. There's something about the dogs barking, especially the bark of a German Shepherd. Cats want nothing to do with it. Even a cat like a bobcat would want nothing to do with this, even though a bobcat would probably win the fight. Risk-reward analysis. It's all psychological operations. It doesn't have to be 5D chess. Yeah, bear, and we know 828 absolutely got it right. Bears will run from dogs. Absolutely. It doesn't have to be 5D chess. It doesn't have to be some crazy, mental construct. Sometimes it's just that simple. And I want to leave with a couple of examples here that I've covered before, and I'm speaking primarily to the men in my audience, ladies out there, back me up on this. We're going to go with The Walking Dead. We're going to start, remember The Walking Dead? Season 1, Season 2, Season 3. This character, Andrea, who is with the normal group, they come to this place called Woodbury, and there's the governor. Now, this governor guy, he's not a great looking guy. He's not muscly. He's not super attractive. But this super pretty girl talks to this guy and gets into a relationship with him. And people are like, what? Why is she with the governor? Why is she crawling into bed with the governor? Well, it's real simple. You know what the governor did? Psychological operations. You know what the governor did? The governor made her feel safe. Now, she wasn't a fool. That little place called Woodbury, with the entire world completely populated with zombies. He wasn't saying that he was going to fix the world. But for that moment in time, even though she had a weapon on her hip and she was with a group of guys that were heavily armed, she chose the governor. Why? Simple. Psychological operations 101. He made her feel safe. Period. Same thing that happened in Colony. This character, this guy, 18-year difference, would have never even considered even having dinner with a guy that old. But what did this guy do right? Made her feel safe. He didn't say, I'm going to defeat the aliens all by myself. He just made her, for that moment in time, believe that her kid would have a regular supply of insulin and that he would be steady Eddie. I put up a poll last night, and it was the question, hey, grid down, shit it's the fan situation, and people have to start to make relationship decisions a lot differently based more on financial stability than romantic attraction. What would be your limit? And I gave 4 choices, plus or minus 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, or age would not be a difference, would not make a difference as long as there was a values connection, that you had the same values. And I haven't looked this morning, but last night, it seemed like the plurality, if not the majority of people answering the poll would say, hey, there's really no age difference that I would dismiss as long as there was a values connection. Now, here's the weird thing about this. When I started to look at this, the psychology of it, guys usually don't have as much of a problem with an age difference as women do. Especially the older the guy. I mean, is some 70-year-old guy going to say, no, I'm not going to date somebody who's 30? No 70-year-old guy is going to say that, but you might see that the other way. A 70-year-old woman might not consider a 30-year-old man, regardless of anything else. So, this is kind of a schism that has occurred in our society, that men and women would make decisions that differently, even though they were facing the same challenge. And that's, I think, something that it's one of the many things, by the way, that the rest of the country has demonized Florida for. The whole Florida man, Florida woman thing. Well, one of the big things in Florida that you see that you don't see other places are people of varying ages in relationships. It's something you kind of have to get used to. It is not uncommon down here to see 70 and 40. It's not. It's not uncommon to see 65 and 35 in Florida. And many people were like, oh, and I'm not talking about old men, young women. You'll see a lot of older women with younger and middle-aged men too. You'll see it go both ways. And a lot of, people from other places, they have that ew factor. Like, oh, I can't believe that. Oh my goodness. Oh, can't they find somebody their age? Oh my goodness. I tell you what, because there are so many people from different backgrounds and all over the world, you get to meet a larger slice of people. And Floridians, because we have this thing, and I'm not saying that people from other places don't enjoy freedom and don't enjoy liberty and don't enjoy happiness, but down here, we know that not every day is guaranteed. And this is more of a Christian moral value thing, that we can be gone tomorrow. Embrace the blessings of God today, whatever they might bring. And guys, do not underestimate the power of psychology. These two people were just an actor and an actress that were just cast in a role back in 2014, 15, something like that. And they were married to different people. They were almost 20 years apart. And they played this role in a series for just a couple of seasons. For just a couple of seasons, they played this role where she had to put everything else aside and pursue a relationship based on what was best for her kid. And he noticed that, and he understood that. And he decided, I'm not going to be the creepy rich old guy. I'm going to be the best guy I can be. And that was just the roles. That was just the roles in the series. And they both ended up in real life divorcing their partners falling in love and living happily ever after. You'll never convince me that the two things were not connected. That the roles they had to play didn't get inside their head. Because they're totally different people. Totally different people. John Shiflett here is saying that he's 60 and has a 37-year-old girlfriend. After a certain age, I do think it matters. Now, I'm not talking about teenagers here. Let's just be very clear. I'm talking about adults. People in the adult world. Because there's a moment, I think it's about the mid-20s that they say that the human mind finally is completely set, so to speak, that it's completely developed. That's why young people learn languages a lot easier than old people do, because their minds are still, well, what did Rush Limbaugh call it? Skulls full of mush. They're impressionable. George Q, 52 and 38. Kayfabe in South. Don't get me started on South America. I'm glad you brought that up. Down in South America, an entirely different thing. Truly an entirely different thing. Up here we have this way of labeling and stigmatizing people that they don't have down there. And that's a lot to do with social media, because I'm sure a lot of girls would say, I'm 34, 35 years old. What am I going to do? Am I going to put this guy in my Facebook page and my friends are going to see how old he is and all this blah, 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 or the other way around, even with a guy and a woman, that there's this social pressure to fit into the norm that I think really is much more prevalent in the Midwest and the Northeast than it is in the South and in Latin America as a whole. And I think that's what happens also when you get outside and put the phone down and you go out, and most of your joy doesn't come from a little thing you're holding in your hand. Most of your joy comes from the sunshine and the beach and the boat and the fishing and the being out and being social with real people. And George said, served 22 years in the Marine Corps, feels content and safe. A lot of guys, they miss that idea of making sure that your loved ones feel safe. And, it's more than just being good with a gun, so to speak. If you go back and watch this, it was really well written. The first few seasons of The Walking Dead were very well written. After about season 3, you can tell other people took over. But it's more than just going to gun shows and jamming the closets full of supplies. Because that can sometimes make a mate feel less than safe. Talking about, and I want people to definitely go to my videos and watch my videos, but talking about what's coming and not talking about solutions other than picking up a gun can actually give people anxiety. And I think that's what this guy did, the governor did, much better than the guys that she was around in her group. Because for them, everything was a war. Everything was a fight. Everything was a challenge. And for a moment with this guy, even though he wasn't very attractive at all and had some major flaws, that's why she hopped into the sack with a guy. So anyway, it's a very common thing. And whoever did the writing for this, I tell you what, Colony, if you're going to watch 4 series, watch Colony, watch the first 3 seasons of The Walking Dead, watch Defiance, and Black Sails. You put all that together, you put everything together in those series, and you'll start to see a pattern. And I'll tell you what, John, you're absolutely right about that. I've heard that myself. John Shiflett said down in the comment section, younger women tell me they can't even carry on a conversation with men their age. This is true. This is true. Being educated, being well read. If I remember right, the Marine Corps used to require Marines to read at least one book a month and be able to speak about it at length. I always thought that was a great idea. It was never a requirement in the Army, but one thing we had to do as intelligence soldiers, especially being a Spanish language, is you had to understand culture. And that required you to read. At least at the time I was in, you had to know what you were talking about. You had to read local newspapers. You had to read the history of where you were serving. You had to understand the culture, because not all of Latin America is the same thing. Not all of Latin America. 600 million plus people living south of our border, and how the Mexicans see the world versus how the Panamanians see the world versus how the Cubans, the Venezuelans, it's all different. It is all different culture-wise. Argentinian culture versus the culture in Colombia, they might as well be there. They're on the same continent, don't get me wrong, but they're definitely two different countries. Truly. But, to North Americans, they'd say, oh, just a bunch of Spanish speakers. Like, well, Spain and Portugal and France, they settled the New World long before the English were here. And they're very different places. Spain, France, and Italy. And history is replete with stories to show you the difference between Portugal and Spain and France and Italy and Germany and England and all of these areas over in Europe that came here. They brought their own unique cultures. But I guess the one thing that has kind of always been a common theme is they wanted to create a place where people felt safer. And when people feel safe, and you can put that underlying idea into a culture, then cultures can grow and thrive and be happy. And the reason that, once again, that I bring this up is that the left is talking about taking away the glue. You take away the idea that you can rely on the power grid. I'll tell you what, that will change everything. It will turn North America, parts of North America, into something worse than the Wild Wild West. Because like I said, if the power just went out, people could adapt. I would say in some places it'd be much worse for the criminals if the power went out. Like, I truly believe in Florida that if the power went out for a long period of time, we would clean house of criminals. When the power came back on, there wouldn't be very many criminals left. But in other places, I think they might take over. But what I really believe is coming is this on, off, on, off, on, off. On, but you can only do this, and this. And another thing that people don't equate with this is cryptocurrency. There is absolutely no cryptocurrency that can exist without a 24/7, 365-day-a-year power grid. Everywhere, not just on their phone. It has to be everywhere all the time to work. For the network to be able to get hash rate, you need an obscene amount of power to do this. And when there are rolling brownouts, they're going to say, okay, what can we cut? What can we cut from the power grid so that people can keep their freezers going, so that insulin can be kept cold, so that hospitals can have power and the police can have repeater towers for their radios? What's going to get cut? The superfluous crap, of course. And cryptocurrency is the definition of superfluous. This is another reason to get the hell out of it and get out of it quick. So, I wouldn't have a dime in it. I would not have a dime in it. Because even with the power grid going up and down and up and down and up and down, you still go to the grocery store with your cash, with your 1s, 5s, 10s, 20s, 50s. They're still going to take them. They're still going to take them. It doesn't matter if there's 1 ounce of gold in Fort Knox. Because people believe in the value of the currency of the US dollar. Whether they should or not is irrelevant. People believe in the value of it. That's all that matters. They know that they take that amount and then they take it to wherever they got to pay bills with or go buy their stuff with. When everybody believes in the currency and it's accepted everywhere, that's all it really needs. That's the only weight it needs. So, other currencies, not so much. That's why even gold to me is kind of a waste. Because I'm telling you right now, if I have a pantry full of food and the grocery stores are closed, and I don't know when they're going to open back up again, and I don't even know that if and when they open back up, they're going to have everything I need. I don't care how many ounces of gold you bring me. I'm not selling you my food. I really don't. You see, there's a value association thing here. You can't eat gold. You can't eat silver. I don't care what the guy on TV says about this idea of it's never been worth zero. A ham sandwich has never been worth zero. A ham sandwich has never been worth zero. That's not an argument. That's a psyop. If you want to talk about people running psychological operations on you, the people selling you frickin' gold for your dollars, while simultaneously saying your dollars are going to be worthless, but we want your dollars in exchange for our gold, is ridiculous. Think about the logic there. If you wouldn't sell your precious metals for dollars because you think the dollar is going to go down, what about the person you just bought it from? Who paid for the TV commercial ad time to get you to buy the gold and buy the silver and buy all that? When you think about that critically, it doesn't make sense, does it? So, anyway, I guess I will leave that there, but thanks for hanging out, guys. Very much appreciate it. We'll, of course, have a video up later. And once again, we are going to continue over at the Patreon channel talking about the realities for women in Shit It's the Fan. And how the decision-making needs to change. Because there's people out there just ready to quote-unquote fight to the death, so to speak, and that's not the answer. So, I'll leave it there. God bless. Like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time.